more about what they do. So without further ado, we're going to jump to the first speaker, and I'm going to put myself on mute and shut up for like a while. We're going to have a chat with Bian Li. She is a futurist who will be discussing the future of work, education, and more. So without further ado, here's snaps from Bian Li. Woohoo!
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. I go around the world. Part of my job is to go and lecture at universities, corporate, startup incubators, and I talk with so many different groups about what it takes for all of us to collectively go into the future and thrive. Because right now there is a lot of anxiety in the world where people are feeling that, you know, robots and AI and machines are going to take over their jobs. Obviously, we have this pandemic that is making everything uncertain for everybody. We have climate change. We have all of these, challenges that are facing us. So how do we navigate this, and how do we actually come out of it stronger? And given that things are changing so fast with technology, with the way we work, how do people adapt? And so I spend a lot of time working with startups, with individuals, advising, coaching, consulting with companies, governments, organizations about how do we do this and how do we actually do it as a collective society, because we can't operate alone anymore. So it starts with mindset. And I think that was one of the questions that somebody put in with the Google Forms. So if you want to go to the first slide, Nash is helping me because I have bandwidth issues, and Nash is helping me navigate this slide, so thank you for that. So if we want to take a look at all of these challenges, we're bombarded with headlines, right? So how do you make sense of it all? I think the biggest thing right now is we suffer from information overload, as well as a lot of misinformation, right? COVID-19 is pretty much being spread through WhatsApp. and I get messages every day from young people, from students, from retirees, from like middle-aged workers who are so anxious because we don't know how all of this applies to our life. We just know that we are at the short end of the stick when it comes to decision-making and lack of leadership. So go to the next slide. So how do we actually go forth with the right mindset? So there's several mindsets, and we cannot, there's the good comic strip of somebody asking, a speaker asking audience, right? Who wants change? Everybody wants change, right? So everybody raises their hands. But then when somebody asks, who wants to change? Nobody raises their hands, right? In order to change the world and change the future, we need to change ourselves. It's easier said than done. And a lot of my job is to develop the programming and work to help students and everyone navigate this future and be able to change. And right now there's a shift. There's a huge economic shift that's going to impact every single person. And Forbes magazine, there was an article in there last year that said it very succinctly. It said, we are desperately in need of a new mindset that builds an economic system centered on creating a shared and durable prosperity for all. So what does that mean? It means that we're going to go from shareholder capitalism, which is the system we have right now, and in terms of, all the shareholders in the companies and everybody makes money at the top, but what happens to the bottom, right? To a stakeholder capitalism in which we need to think about every organization, every company as an ecosystem, and who is impacted by that ecosystem? The consumers, the vendors, the supply chain, and how do we think about our decisions and the consequences from a whole ecosystem perspective? Because it's not just about profit anymore. In the future, we have to think about the 3 Ps, the triple bottom line: profit, people, and planet. Because no longer can we just operate in a silo and just make money and do our business without thinking about the consequences on a bigger scale. And so that's a big mindset shift, is we have to think in terms of ecosystems and our stakeholders. Who actually has a stake in my business? And how am I a stakeholder in all of the the systems that I influence? And we do a lot of work with our startups on creating platforms that allow win-win-win systems based on this ecosystem and stakeholder mindset. Okay, you want to go to the next slide? So we have to go from a resilience mindset. Everyone talks about resilience. How do we build resilience? How do we raise resilient children? That's already outdated, right? Resilience means you can take a punch and still stand. We have to go from resilience to a regenerative mindset, meaning how do we actually take that punch and come out stronger and actually thrive more. And this means that we have to fundamentally change how we learn. Schools are not properly preparing the next generation for the future of work. And a lot of what I do is trying to bridge that gap between schools and the workforce. The workforce and the companies will complain that it's so hard to find people that are prepared for that journey of learning. Because right now, we're so used to be taught what to learn, but we're not being taught how to learn, right? And so that's why you get so many people that are anxious when they lose their jobs. They don't know how to adapt or be regenerative enough because of the fact that they were never taught how to learn. And we're all stuck in the mindset that, oh, I'm job A, so I'll always be job A. No, if you have certain skill sets, you can actually use them for job B, but people need to be taught how to do that. And fundamentally, for us to adapt to the future of work, we need to start with the future of education. So those two are really aligned. You want to go to the next slide? And so this is a simple acronym I created, and I can share these slides later. Before the previous slide, Nash. In terms of feasting for the future. So I say this, so I spent a lot of time working in India. And in South India, they have the banana leaf. In Malaysia, they also do too, right? And I always say the future is a South Indian banana leaf. Why? Because it has all of these different flavors, and they all are great individually. But when you put them together, and they become this gorgeous feast. And we have to go from eating to survive to feasting to thrive. And feast is an acronym that helps us remember what are the skills and what do we need to take into account for the future. We need to forecast, learn how to forecast, empower. How do we empower our workforce? How do we empower ourselves to continue learning? Empower our customers. We're not just in the selling business anymore. We have to be in the education business, right? How do we accelerate that and learn how to leverage and mobilize our resources? How do we actually learn how to sustain that, not just from an economic point of view, but from a whole systems point of view in terms of the environment, human capital? And how do we transcend and continue to evolve and actually think bigger and grow and have a much more global mindset? Okay. Want to go to the next? And so this is the 5 V's of when we're formulating the future, what are the building blocks that we have to take into account to think more holistically, to think more integratively, right? And if you're building a business, if you're looking for a job, whatever you want to do, where you start here and you want to go here, right? This is a good, easy broken down system in terms of thinking of going from your vision to actually how that looks on the ground. Your vision, your value, what you bring to the table, your vitality, how feasible it is, the capacity for it, the volatility. And that's something that another mindset for the future is we have to be amenable, and we have to be accepting of the uncertainty. And that's an ambiguity. And that's something that most people, human beings, don't like ambiguity. Human beings by nature don't like uncertainty, right? We'll go with the devil we know versus the devil we don't know. And that requires a complete mindset shift too. And allowing ourselves to be comfortable with uncertainty, because that's where the opportunities are. And that's pretty much how the future is going to be. This is not going to be the last pandemic, right? Not to like, be all Debbie Downer here, but this is not going to be the last pandemic. We're going to see a lot more, global challenges. And in this day of globalization, something can't be contained in just one country. So we have to understand that and how do we manage that? And the visibility. How do we actually create a pathway for ourselves that can future-proof ourselves despite all these external risk factors? Then next slide, please. And I won't go too much into this. I can, just for the sake of time, but just looking at it in terms of thinking beyond our organization, beyond ourselves, into our industry and into the larger global ecosystem of what our business or what our job or what our company, operates. Okay. And in the future, let's go back to AI. There was a question about AI and its role in our future. And sorry, just go back to the next slide. Nash, can we go to the next slide? Okay, great. So the future isn't just about technology. Technology, everyone thinks, oh, in the future we'll have technology solve our problems. Wrong mindset. Technology is not a panacea. It is not the silver bullet. It is only as good as the humans that design and operate it and use it. So in the future, we're going to have to think, we actually, ironically, technology is going to help us be more human. How? Because when people are saying, you know, I'm afraid, I'm anxious that AI is going to take over my job, good. You should be happy because you are not meant to, if AI is going to take your job, that means humans aren't meant to do that job. You're not meant to do your tedious cubicle work. You're not meant to be a zombie, right? Your life is way too much more valuable to be a zombie. And what we are doing is raising generation after generation of zombies, right? And so AI is going to help take all that repetitive stuff, do that so you can free up your mind space to do what you are capable of doing to your fullest potential. And it's going to require us to be more human, and then for us to be educated in how do we learn and how do we activate those parts of our brain that's going to allow us to do stuff that machines can't do, right? And that goes into the learning part. What machines aren't emotionally intelligent like humans are. Machines can't do complex problem solving that humans can, right? And if you want to go into the next one, right? And so we have to ask, with this technology and this great responsibility that we build, for whom are we building the future and who is included in the future, right? Right now, the future looks really scary to most people because they know they're falling behind. What do you say to that slum kid in Mumbai or that laid off factory worker in France, right? These people don't feel included. And in the future, we are facing so many challenges, we can't afford to have people not be included. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. And so I won't quote this, but these are just a lot of industry leaders who are talking about how artificial intelligence is actually going to augment our intelligence. And so the people that are best prepared, the business owners, the students, the workers that are best prepared for the future are the ones who are going to know that, you know, to quote Socrates, I actually don't know anything, right? And that they're going to know how to learn, and they're going to love the lifelong journey of learning and how they can unleash their own intelligence. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, next slide. So somebody asked about jobs, so I included this slide. Go down, next slide. Okay, somebody asked about jobs and what kind of jobs are going to be in the future. The beauty of this question is nobody knows, so it's your time to invent it. Yes, we know what kind of industries are going to need types of jobs, right? You know, all the emerging technologies, climate science, climate related jobs, clean energy, all of these things revolving around actually making the world a better place, which is really exciting, right? All of the things that are going to work on bringing convenience and leveling the digital playing field, that's really exciting. The most exciting part in the work that I do is I get to tell kids that 65% of them that are entering primary school now will end up in jobs that don't yet exist. And so we have a perfect opportunity now, if we get it right, to be able to write our own future and create our own. But in order to create and write our own future, we need to be able to have the skills to do that. And we need to be able to answer the question of, what future do we want to build for ourselves, right? And how do you do that when most of us, when the system trains us to be zombies, right? Next slide, please. And that is when I come to the lovely word called ikigai. And my ikigai is helping everyone find their own ikigai. And essentially, it's a Japanese concept meaning your reason for being. Why do you wake up in the morning? In the future, when we're required to be more human and allow us to actually fulfill what our real purpose is, what is that, right? And it's the bliss point between what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And if everyone can find this, imagine how much more fulfilled, happy, healthy, whole society will be. and the fact that you can make money, so it's sustainable, and the fact that you're actually making an impact for the world. And we need everyone to be able to find that. And not just individuals. We need teams, we need organizations, we need companies. Your business has its own ikigai, right? And later our branding experts on this panel are going to tell you more about the branding and finding that purpose. But everybody needs to think in terms of their ikigai, right? And that is how you are able to differentiate yourself. And that is how you are going to be able to unleash you in this world of, so much noise and so many people. Most people never feel like they have the audacity to dream. And ikigai is what is going to lay that foundation for you to be able to turn your dreams into reality. Okay, next. Okay. Yeah, next. Just including some more quotes in there. Okay, next. Okay, so now we go into the future of work. Next. Okay. This is the secret. This is the key for the people who are going to have a better chance to succeed versus the people that are going to be, held back. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. I know we have some educators. I'm an educator, but I always tell our students, our startups, all the universities that we work with, that one of our jobs is to teach people how to unlearn. And it's not just unlearn what we learn in the classroom, but unlearning all of the BS, to be frank, that is ingrained in us from growing up, whether culture, whether family systems, all the limiting beliefs, negativity, toxicity, whatever, that is preventing us from stepping into our own power, right? This applies on an individual level. This applies on an organizational level, right? How many times in an organization, in a business, where you go in, you want to make a change, and everyone's like, well, we've always done it this way, so we're going to continue, right? That thinking is already so outdated. Organizations and businesses and entrepreneurs who continue to think like that are going to fall behind, if not already, okay? We have to, it's harder to unlearn because it requires to question and requires us to go against the grain, and it requires us to be the squeaky wheel, right? But it's so important because that's how innovation happens. And that's how disruption happens. And that's how we pull people with us into the future, okay? Go ahead. Next, please. Okay. And that's another statistic. So we have hope. Next. Okay. So now, what does this mean for your job? What does this mean for the workforce? What does this mean for, as teachers, what does this mean for your students, right? Things are in the gray are declining. All of these skills that maybe even 5-10 years ago were the next hottest thing. All of these in the gray are already going to be, if not already, replaced by machines, okay? The blue is what is growing, and this is what makes us superhuman, because this is what we're able to do if we learn how to do it. That is going to set us apart from the machines, and it's going to allow us to create more, to do more, to be more and advance more and progress more, right? And so part of what we do at the Hungry Lab is incorporate all of these skills into our educational programs, and working with universities and working with startup incubators and individuals on mastering these in a way that actually produces real life results. And so I love teaching, and this is something that I highly encourage you guys to read more about. And I can send you later a list of books that I highly recommend, and as well as some companies that are really being the example of integrating this in real life way. And the issue here with schools is that so much of curriculum, given bureaucracy and red tape, it takes so long to implement a new curriculum that many teachers don't even know how to teach this. And so it's really critical that we all are aware, and that even parents understand that for your children, how we were taught and how we, told our children to do their homework and to do all of that, everybody needs to grow up to be an engineer? No, because most likely now all the STEM jobs, we're starting to see a resurgence in the humanities. Why? Because all the STEM jobs are going to are starting to be utilized more through AI, right? And so the humanities are seeing a resurgence. So parents, I know I grew up with strict Asian parents too, doctor, engineer, all of that, that is outdated, okay? The future is a blank slate, and let's embrace that. And it starts with the mindset shift, not just with the workforce, not just with our educators, but with our children. And the children requires a mindset shift with the parents, right? And families, so important. Still the number one influence are family systems. Okay, next, please. Okay, and why is learning how to learn so important? Because technology and things are happening so fast that when you learn one thing or skill, most likely it's going to be outdated and replaced by something new in a couple years. So we have to learn how to learn and adapt. And we have to learn and teach about teaching and think about thinking. And by 2022, everybody needs to be prepared to be learning for 1/3 of the year. And how do we get people excited about learning, right? It starts with changing how we teach. How many people, me included, say, I hate math, right? When people say, oh my God, I hate math, that's not true. You don't hate math, you hate how you were taught math, right? Now, if we're able to now go into the shift, and we're already seeing that on the ground, and that's where the future of education is going, the shift towards creating the education in terms of customization, right? Right now, the system, whether it's startup investment, venture capital, whether it's education, schooling system, raising our children, it all requires, right now the system is designed for one type of seed in one type of soil to grow one type of fruit. We're expecting everyone to be apples. In real life, we have thousands of different fruits, thousands of different seeds. So we need to create so many more different types of soils to allow all of these to flourish. And that's a big part of what we do. But nobody wants to be in the soil because it's hard work. You get your hands dirty, spend a lot of time getting that seed to take root. But if we can think about that mindset in terms of everybody is a seed, how do I help myself take root? And how do I actually find the soil that is right for me? When in a future, we no longer require college degrees to work at Facebook or Google or Tesla, right? And Elon Musk is saying that, degrees are fun, but they're not really required to succeed in life, right? In the future, it's about skills. It's about your ability and pace in which you learn, and your hunger and your drive. That's going to be the most important thing. Okay, next. Okay. And so this is the future landscape when we think about that seed and it's growing into this forest and all of these things that are happening, right? And how do we learn? If we think of ourselves as the seed and that soil, that is the incubating environment. That is the education environment from not just a school perspective, but how do we educate ourselves and how do we prepare our own minds and our bodies, because of the mind-body connection, to adapt. So when you hear the term the fourth industrial revolution, future for it, what have you, it cannot exist if we don't fundamentally change how we learn, which is then the next cognitive revolution. And when we're learning and unlearning and finding a new way to be human in parallel with technology, it actually requires a much more fundamental future of being, from do to know to be. And the future of being are the self-awareness skills of who am I? Where am I going? What is my life's purpose? What is my journey, right? The meta skills, the self skills, and that requires an existential revolution. And that's hard, people, to go inside, right? Now we're in quarantine, right? If you can't go outside, right, as the meme says, go inside. And it's a perfect time right now to reflect and actually go inside and think about your place in the future and how you actually can make an impact. Because we've never lived through a time like this where things are changing so rapidly, and yet we have so much control. It may seem like we don't have control, but in the longer term, we have so much control in writing our own future, right? Next, please. Okay. And so this is actually our ecosystem in terms of now transforming the previous slide into a workable model in order to help every single person from that seed grow into a strong tree and bear strong fruit. And so I won't go into too much detail, but these are all of our programs that work holistically in terms of our global school for the future, our regenerative school. This is all to help people become regenerative. And so please contact me if you have any other questions in the future. And go to the next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay. And so this is just a quick summary of all of those components you just saw. Sorry, previous. Okay, yeah, this slide. So it's about first finding your ikigai, right? What is that seed, right? How do you actually go through your purpose, your passion, your means of profit, your pipeline, your pathway? To unlearn, you need to go within yourself and you need to reframe. And that's hard because it requires a lot of times reprogramming and reframing your subconscious, right? And so it requires that mindset shift. It requires mental wellness, personal growth and development. And that's why we have the Healing Lab. In order to unlock your voice and create the confidence in communication and thought leadership, we have the Unlab. In order to discover the future skills, whether it's the hard skills for technology, the soft skills like emotional intelligence, or the self skills like self-awareness, right? And then how do you actually unleash it from jobs to startup incubation to developing your business to investing in the future? And the future requires us to think about the stakeholder system and think about everything as integrated and holistic, right? And that is the trend, whether we're seeing it in medicine, especially in Western medicine, and now we're seeing a shift in people understanding that you can't just tackle a disease by just focusing on the cells. You got to look at the whole system, which is what Eastern medicine has taught for thousands of years. We're seeing that in terms of education shifting and more people realizing that our traditional schooling system is not enough and it's woefully unprepared. And we need to be educating the whole of the human being versus just subjects. And people are waking up and companies are waking up, and all of you here today, you're much more you're putting yourself in a position just by attending the seminar of understanding and being one step closer to thriving in this future. And I'll answer more questions if you have it, but just for the sake of time, I don't want to go on too long. But this is a very truncated short version of the longer presentations that I do around the world. And the future is going to be global. So I'm so happy to see so many people from different countries here tonight. And I look forward to answering questions. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you very much, Bian Li. The snaps, and also if you guys want to react to your clapping, there's a reaction at the bottom of your screen. Thank you very much. That was really, really insightful. At the moment, we've got a lot of well dones, a lot of agreements from the chat group. You can have a read through them later on, but I do want to highlight one question that might be helpful. So what is the smartest investment that businesses should make at this point of time in order to be able to gain all of this knowledge that you had just spoken about?
So there's several things. Immediately, to put my practical hat on, cash is king. Okay, So people right now should be focused in the short term on cash flow. How do you manage that cash flow, and how do you make sure you extend your runway? Especially with the startups, spent a lot of time last week checking in with our startups, because new businesses especially are very much at risk for the cash run out. So it's important to invest to not just invest in learning right now. It's a great time, right? But invest in things that are actually going to set you up in the future, and start planning long term. So make sure your cash situation is sorted out for the short term, and then start planning for the long term. It's most people feel very dejected, and it's so easy to say, okay, it's fine, whatever, I'm just going to deal with it, and take a passive approach. Right now is the time to start looking up all of the grants, the small business, startup funding that people are giving out right now in your country. Every country is different, but start looking at all of those, because there's a lot of money that's untapped that a lot of people don't know about. So every country is different. So look it up in your country, what resources are available to you. So invest this time in researching and learning and planning for the long term while managing your cash flow situation.
All right, thank you very much, Bian Li. Again, snaps and also a big claps from your reaction if you want. But yes, thank you so much. Later on, you can actually stick around and talk a lot more, network with Bian Li. But I'm gonna move on with the next speaker. We have Nash, yay! And she will be talking about the importance of brand presence during this the COVID outbreak and the methods of how we can actually reflect on our business in the branding standpoint. So take it away.
Hi guys, give me 1 minute. I'm just gonna on a sleep song for my son because he's complaining. Okay.
You got it?
Moms. Hi, so everyone who has not known me yet, my name is Nash, or I fondly call myself Queen Nash. I would like to thank all of you for making the time to come here tonight, and good for you for coming on and empowering yourself with knowledge. All right. So my name is Nash. I'm Queen Nash, and I'm the founder of Meme Brand Consulting, and I started this Transforming Queens movement. So I'm very passionate to empower queens out there, but I see several men here, so I bet you must be supporting the queens in your community and as well. And so basically what I want to do is I want to empower a lot more queens to build their confidence, and I do that with branding, because I think branding is the highest level of knowing exactly who you are and having the confidence to act on it. Okay, so the first week when Malaysia went to lockdown, I immediately sent a text to all my clients on how their brand should react to the situation. And in terms of communication, brands should always be compassionate and empathetic. Right? Because all of us are in solidarity together, and will come across as brash right now if you move forward to any hard selling. Okay, so what you should do is listen to your audience. Okay, see where everyone is grieving, where everyone needs support, and come up with messages that are empathetic. All right, and actually this is the great time for you as a brand to bring out the core values that is your brand essence. So if you're asking what sort of strategy that your business should take now, it's the time for you to strategize on your long-term game. As what Bian Li has said, this is a time to reflect on your brand. This is a time to ground yourself and really look at what are the changes that are happening that's taking place, because we know that change is constant, is going all around you. Okay, so we will see that this pandemic has caused a lot of changes in human behavior, and in turn to that, the system will change. So we're going to see a new kind of normal after this. Okay, so belief systems are going to change in terms of how we study, in terms of how we make purchases, and in terms of how we consume things. and consumers are really following. So what doesn't change is your brand values. Sorry, I have people just popping in and out. So what doesn't change are your brand values that uniquely identifies who you are. Okay, so and the future is where people are making heart-centric purchases. Right? In the future, we're going to see people who are going to make brands because of an emotional connection that they have towards their brands. Consumers want to buy from brands who are more humanized, who are transparent, who create experience and want to speak to their community rather than simply, promote on their quality. So the future is where people are going to be conscious about making purchases and they want to see brands that are authentic. So therefore, for brands to remain relevant and to be sustainable, it's for you to be authentic in your storytelling. All right, a business is sustainable when you have a strong brand. So this is a great time for you to start building on your brand. And what changes, if you look at the different industries out there, entertainment, business industry is still there, but it's just changed in the way they operate things, where now we can see Netflix is the higher grossing consumer of how we consume our entertainment right now. So industries will remain, it's just how you change in the way you operate that business. Okay, so I'm just going to share a little background of how you build a foundation of a brand. Some people have come and asked me questions how they could start a brand and what it consists of. So a brand essentially is like a person. It's like an anatomy. So in each individual, you will have your core character, beliefs, and personality, like something that is innately you and you cannot change. That is your brand core values. And outside is how they identify you with your core values, which is how you wear, how you dress yourself, or might be your logo, the design, the look and feel. And then outside are your interactions. It's where you and your brand audience meet. So in this scenario, your interactions might be changing, okay, because of the situation, but your core brand values still remain the same. All right, so basically that's briefly what branding is all about. I think I have answered some questions, but I just want to move along to the next.
If anyone has any, I'm looking at the screen, I see some thumbs up. Everyone seems to be okay. We do have a couple of questions. I think this one would be the final Q&A sesh. We've got a question from Anita. I'm not sure who she's directing this question to. What are the fundamentals to build brand authenticity? So who are you directing that to, Anita?
Sorry, that was to Nash.
Okay, so Nash, this question's for you. What are the fundamentals to build brand authenticity? And also, how can brands make an emotional connection that moves to consumer purchase? Millennials are quite skeptical.
Okay, so basically a brand that is authentic is a brand who knows exactly who they are and what they stand for. So to know who they exactly are is to know what are the values that they emulate. And this goes to every part of the brand hierarchy, okay? To the person who works for your brand, to the person who's managing social media, how you portray those values should be encompassing. You should walk the talk, not only in the way you communicate, but it has to be put into action. All right, those action is what is going to translate your brand authenticity to your audience. And how can brands make an emotional connection that moves to consumer purchase? So millennials nowadays, most of them would actually research on the brand before they make a purchase, right? Why? They want to buy from a brand that has a good track record. So it's really impossible for brands to make a mess. You have to be transparent, because one bad PR flop, your entire brand blows up. So that's why authenticity is key, and making really conscious communications when you are communicating to the public. right? So brand building is not something that happens overnight, okay? So you need to invest time, energy, and a little bit of money and consistent communication to build that brand up. And once you have a portfolio, a steady, consistent messaging, people will start trusting you. And when that trust happens, that's when your consumers and your audience will come back to you again and again. I hope that answers your question.
All right, cool. We have a question from Isaac, which I'm just going to read it out, but I think, Nash, you can take time after this because you guys are having a private session, right, afterwards? Are you guys going to continue with that? Or are you going to, maybe you can get in touch with him later on? Or would you like to just answer the question now?
Okay, let me just read the question quick.
Because the question is basically to everyone, in terms of rethinking existing strategy of brands versus performance, is there an example? Can you give us an example?
All right, so for example, I just saw this ad that Coca-Cola put out, and what they've done is that they've pulled out their campaigns that they're going to run in the next quarter, and they've used that marketing budget to fund the frontliners for COVID-19. So that's where I'm talking about brands are rethinking the way they are putting their messaging out there. So this is a time where brands have to be compassionate and in solidarity in the cause, okay? So why is this important? Because in the long term, your consumers are going to remember you for it.
All right.
I think sorry, if I could add to you as well, Nash.
Sure.
So an example of this on our side too is what you do now to build for the long term. So if you're switching up your communication to not focus so much on your conversions or how you're pushing people to the end of the funnel, it's more about the awareness of what you took as a brand, what stand you took as a brand during COVID for 6 months down the line. So people will remember that, as opposed to just saying, buy my product now, it's on sale, I need to get it out of the shelf. So this is something that we are rethinking with content.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. Now, I do have a question from Anita to Bian Li. How does one unlearn what you already know? Is Bian Li there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
So
cool.
it depends on what you're actually trying to unlearn. So for example, a lot of people have, we talk to a lot of founders who were wannabe founders who, have spent 20 years in the corporate world, as an example. And then they realize they want to create something with purpose and do something on their own. But they're held back by a lot of insecurity. They're held back by a lot of doubt. And they don't know where this doubt is coming from, right? Consciously, hey, I'm a professional. I have all these degrees. I have 20 years of experience. I've done all this, blah, blah, blah. I have these achievements. I should feel empowered to go and do my own thing. What's holding me back? When you start peeling back layer after layer of what you need to unlearn, you realize, wow, all of this negative limiting stuff comes from what I learned when I was a kid. And it wasn't something that I learned in the classroom, maybe. It was something that I just picked up from downloading, from watching my family. Maybe my dad said, never go start your own business. You need job security, right? Maybe my mom said, oh, you're not creative enough to do your own job, to start your own business. You need to be secure with a job, and that's it. Many of us hear that, right? The thing we have to understand is, from the ages of 0 to 8, your brain, now we're getting into some neuroscience here, your brain is actually in theta wave. We have different waves. Right now, we're all in alpha, right? When we're sleeping, it's delta, okay? The place between sleep and half awake, that's theta, okay? Now, from the ages of 0 to 8, we're in theta, which means that our brains are not fully developed enough to process all of the stuff we're hearing from our environment. We're just downloading. So whatever we see, whatever we observe, we're downloading. So parents, it's really important to make sure that you understand this, because your kids are downloading and picking up stuff, whether or not you're paying attention or not. And so we realize that when we're picking up all of these we're getting subconsciously programmed. It's our own operating system that we get from 0 to 8. And that carries us for the rest of our life in terms of our patterns, our behaviors, our interactions with others, our mindset, our perspective, and how we see the world, how we work, all of this stuff. And so when we're trying to unlearn and unchange something, a lot of times it requires us to reopen a lot of stuff from our childhoods, to break those patterns of why am I getting triggered by this? Why can I not do this? Why am I holding myself back from this? Then we need to fundamentally understand that yes, we can unlearn. And to do that, we need to get all the roots out and reprogram our new subconscious, right? We need to update our operating system. And a lot of times it requires, right, with terms of, getting new habits and getting rid of triggers, we need to reframe those triggers, make peace with them, forgive, heal those wounds. And sometimes it can be a painful process, right? The wound is where the light enters, though. And the more understanding and the more we go within ourselves, we're able to understand all of the things that we need to unlearn, and actually the power to unlearn is all within ourselves. We just have to get that step. And that mindset is the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset. Do we believe we can change? Do we believe we can unlearn? So many people don't even think they can unlearn. Oh, I'll never quit smoking. Oh, I'll never be able to learn programming. Oh, I'll never be able to do that. Well, I'll never get rich. I'll never make money. That's not something our family's always been poor. I'll be poor, right? How many of those things can we actually reframe? We can reframe all of that. But we have to allow ourselves to do that. And so so I highly encourage you guys to learn about Carol Dweck. She's a professor at Stanford, and she wrote a great best-selling book about growth versus fixed mindset. She's done a lot of research on this. Fixed mindset being, oh, I was born with a certain set of skills and intelligence, and I'll never be able to shift my brain to learn new things. Or the growth mindset, which is based on the fact that our brains are so malleable that we can teach ourselves new languages, learn new things always, right? Neuroplasticity. And how we actually program our kids to have a growth mindset starts from even how we talk to them and how we compliment them. Studies have shown that when you actually tell a kid, hey, you're smart, they actually develop a fixed mindset because now they've tied their achievement with their identity. So the next time, right, they got an A, oh, you're so smart, right? But that's actually teaching them to fix their identity and their self-worth with that A, right? So the next time they get a B, they lose their confidence. They don't feel like they're worthy anymore because they're not smart anymore, right? Versus the growth mindset, when you compliment a child, oh, you got an A, I can see that you worked really hard on that. You must have spent a lot of time and you learned and you remembered. That's fantastic, great effort. You see the difference? Now that is so important because now that kid has tied his identity and his self-worth with his ability to be resilient. And that is how you start programming from an early age, that mindset. And that is the difference between the successful worker and the unsuccessful worker. The difference between the successful entrepreneur and the unsuccessful entrepreneur, right? And so, yes, we all have the ability to unlearn and relearn. We have to have the will to do so because it's not an overnight process. Fundamentally, whether we need to unlearn and unpack, we have to be able to go within, and we have to be able to look at some stuff that may be ugly about our past, or stuff that we don't like about ourselves, or we have to be honest. And so it requires a lot of self-awareness. And I can go talk about hours and hours and hours of how this relates to healing and both mind, body, soul, and all of that. But so you can contact me afterwards about that separately. Okay.
All right, cool. We do have, thank you very much, Bian Li. That was a very extensive one. Isaac says thank you. We've got like couple more questions later on for, actually no, Bian Li, one question for you. Would you have any recommendation on books or thought leaders on this topic of healing? I think if you can list that out and we'll do like a little emailer or something like that, you can, then at least everyone has the full list. Just
Okay.
a question to, I believe there is a last question to Ruhana. I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna have to scroll up a little bit. All right, so this one goes out to Ruhana from Isaac. If we are focusing in brand as compared to performance, what can we do further to bounce back in the short term? And can we have an example?
Sure. I actually have some examples on my deck, so I'm happy to share that back from brands who've actually activated this. But essentially what brands can do right now in this moment is build out their roadmap for the next 3 months. That is essential in ensuring that you have your communication straight and that you know how to pivot from there. I mean, we are seeing stark differences in China just in the recent weeks when they've opened up. They're seeing even their health and beauty, some of their luxury brands starting to bounce back up. And the reason for this was because they did not neglect brand building during COVID. So while they may have not been pushing sales initiatives, they were definitely pushing for CSR initiatives. I think there was an example of Mr. DIY in Singapore who was looking to donate masks. So there is, you know, a ton of other things that we can add to this. I also have a really good link from United Nations that I could share here later for brands to take on. They're basically opening up for any brands, any marketer out there who wants to do a campaign that is tied to hygiene or washing your hands or how to really fight the virus. And if any brand wants to sign up for it and do a campaign for it, they will gladly blast it across their channels, which gives you further visibility. So it's really about coming together and ensuring that you have a voice that is in resonance with everyone at the moment.
All right. Thank you very much, Rana. All right. So I suppose that would be the last question. Anyone else want to add in, chime in? Nash, you're muted. I see that. I feel like you're about to say something.
Yeah, sorry, I think we missed one question. Someone said, how much does a CEO influence a brand?
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So usually the CEO or the top management of the company would have a group of people that they would think tank to come up with the brand. But sometimes branding it will change from time to time. For example, things like this, and they would call a brand expert to help them through that process. So it depends on what sort of companies you are talking about. Is it big companies, corporates? Is it SMEs? I've been called into corporate companies and even smaller SMEs where I would so my process is more on a coaching process where I draw out what the brand essence is and I help them shape their framing of their values. So it really depends the nature of that company and how the organization, manages their brand. Okay, I think that's it.
All right. Okay. So I actually just got one last question from Mohan. A question to Rohana or Nash. Curious about family businesses in Malaysia that have done good branding. I like Tanah Merah and British India, but like to hear from you guys or Asian brands from the region. You guys have any thoughts? Quick thoughts on that? Quick brands that you guys think have done pretty well for themselves?
Local brands. I think there are some pretty good local brands here in Malaysia. Like even some brands that we don't know are Malaysians, but have done really well.
Do you have any examples at the moment?
At
the top of your head?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of a food brand that has done really well.
Okay, I'll tell you what, why don't, for this particular question, Rohana or Nash, you guys can later on list out the brands. Perhaps this is something that Mohan and everyone else can actually have a look at. But yes, I think because we're short on time, we're going to wrap things up a little bit. But I've just posted, Bian Li said, I think my burger lab is doing pretty well. So that answers your question, Mohan. That's one suggestion. But I did just post up on our chat group. I reposted what Nash posted as a gentle reminder. We've got a feedback form for everyone, and we will be emailing the slides to you. But again, I must say thank you very much to Bian Li, Nash, and Rohana for their presentation. Snaps, thumbs up, clap, and everyone. I mean, it was really, really great. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think a lot of people can safely say that, at this particular time, it's great that we have each other to, look out to, and we can still reach out to them. Just so you guys know, you could still reach out to our speakers. Just a really, really quick one to Bian Li, Nash, and Ruhana. How can they, do you guys have any programs right now that will be able to assist any businesses at this point?
Go ahead.
Bian Li, do you have any, do you want to start with,
Yeah, sure. If you guys want to go to, I'll have the link in the chat. Go to thehungrylab.com/join the re-economy or regenerative economy. You can sign up there for our invitation list, and we're going to be making announcements on the upcoming programs. We currently have a rolling application process for our Ikigai Incubator, where we're helping everybody, and not just individuals, but startups, find their Ikigai and roll that out, as well as our startup incubation process for from conception ideas to early stage companies. And so those are the two main active ones that we have right now. We do have an ongoing coaching program and advisory program for job seekers, as well as people who we call second chapters, those who have spent a lot of time in the corporate world, have a skill set, and now want to do something great for the world. We have a lot of people who are contacting us and asking for help and being able to apply their skills to something meaningful for the world. So if you are any one of those, anything that applies, just please contact me through the website and find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Very nice. Just a gentle reminder to anyone who hasn't added in their LinkedIn accounts, or just introduce themselves really quickly. You can put it in your chat box. How about you, Nash? What does MIM have in offer?
So we have a few programs. Basically, we're running 3 programs. One is called Brand with Purpose. It's basically for companies and SMEs who want to discover what their brand is. So it's really discovering what your brand core identity is, and then your identity and your interactions. We're going to strategize that framework. There's personal branding, which is branding for change makers. And then there's also Transforming Queens program, where I shine your crown and bring out the confidence in you.
Very nice. Okay, and Ruhana, what about you? Is Lemonade providing any services that we could potentially reach out to for
Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely now looking to working with any partners within Malaysia who are looking for just assistance on how to reach out to their consumers, or how to really handle the current situation with their content plans. We've already put a few efforts in place to help out some local brands, so happy to share that at a different time. I just sent over a screenshot as well of some examples of how other brands are doing this. I don't have a specific example offhand right now for Malaysia specifically, but I'm happy to share that. You guys have my LinkedIn, all my details are there, and you can reach us at wearelemonade.co, and happy to help wherever is needed.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Johanna. Once again, big round of applause or snaps to our speakers, and to you guys, of course, for joining us. Tuesday just became a whole lot more awesome and very, very insightful for sure. I think, again, last reminder, gentle reminder, if you guys haven't added your information for us to get in touch with you to network again afterwards, do it right now ASAP. We've also got a link for you guys to fill our feedback form, because at the end of the day, this experience is we're doing this for the community. It's for all of us, and we hope that this way you will be able to somehow help us help other people, or you could pay it forward yourselves in the future. I think that's very, very important in this time. But that's it for me. Thank you so much for letting me be your moderator. Hope I wasn't rambling on too much. And yes, I think that's that. Nash, do you have anything else to say?
No, I'm really happy that everyone came on. I hope we can do more of these sessions, and do join us for the next Transforming Queen Pow Wow.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so without further ado, I think we're just gonna all hit back and go to sleep for those of you who are in jail. But thank you very much.